I think it's a really important part of at least Christian ethics that we don't think that our lives are meaningless, and we also don't think that everyone has to become a contemplative. So how do we make sense of our super purpose-driven, activity-filled lives in the scheme of this nihilist threat? Well, for many Christians in a deep strand of Christian philosophy, what's really important is that the activities that we find really meaningful and that we pour ourselves into be connected with something that's permanent and good. But that permanent good thing doesn't have to be just a permanent continuation of our life. It can be connected with a permanent good thing that's God. So what does that mean? It means when you find activities in this life, like the activities of creating knowledge, or the activities of loving and caring for other people, the permanent, eternal guarantor of that meaningfulness is the fact that creativity and love are aspects of God, who's permanent and eternal. And we're, in this life, like right now, presently participating in things that are permanently and eternally good. This is a Christian Platonic conception of meaningfulness, but it's one that a lot of people have found really attractive, and is at least one live answer for trying to answer the nihilist threat without just thinking that adding more time into our lives or more time into history is going to be the thing that solves this problem, at least when you find yourself in the grips of this problem. So this is a view that, again, I entertain really seriously, both personally, and I think it's a live philosophical option for answering what is a live philosophical question. Alan did a great job of making some practical recommendations that come out of his theory for thinking about this puzzle of how we create more space for meaning in the context of our lives. So I'll end maybe with a couple other practical considerations that come from taking this kind of conception of God seriously. First practical consideration, I think, is we live in a culture, and I look at you MIT engineers. How many engineers do we have here? I look at you guys. It's acutely focused on the future and making a difference to the future and the relationship of our projects to nearby future generations. And that's good in a certain sense. It's important to care about the future, and it's important to care about other people. But that's not the only temporal direction we ever have to look in to find meaning. In fact, one thing that I find really liberating and rich about the Christian tradition is that we can also look back on past people and their efforts. Sometimes they're hilariously silly efforts, like hiring hermits to live on your estate. They seem to be totally obsolete, and like all of our technology, all of our efforts are ultimately going to be made obsolete as well. But still, we appreciate the fact that they were striving in creativity and love to participate in something that was eternally good. And we're going to be in their same boat. Future generations are going to look on our efforts in a similarly trivial way, but appreciate the fact that we really cared about what was good. So I find that liberating, that you can think about our relationship with the people that have come before us just as much as our relationship and duties to the people who are going to come next. I think another thing that's important to think about is this view of meaning really encourages us to cultivate gratitude for our ridiculously short lives and puny space of the universe that we live them in. Because we think at the very least our small efforts, they don't have to be perfect. We're forgiven for not making a permanent difference to the world. The biggest thing we have to focus on is whether or not, in fact, we're able to connect up our half-hearted efforts with something that's much bigger than ourselves. And that is what a lot of us ordinarily think of as the source of meaning. So that's one option. And then finally, and this totally sympathizes with Alan's really interesting remarks at the beginning, we, especially high-achieving intellectual folks, can tend to make an idol out of time management. We can think that we can pour more meaning into our lives by just being more efficient, by downloading a better sleep app, by Pomodoroing. Is that even still a thing? Or set these 15-minute timers to interrupt your writing. There's something good in that drive within us because it's part of the drive to do better at being creative, at discovering truth. That's all good parts of our nature. But the fact that you're able to manage your time in this, remember, insanely short, in the scheme of things, life that we're given, is not in and of itself that important. Why is that? Because again, at the end of the day, none of us as individuals are ever going to make any kind of permanent difference to this big, insane universe. 20 to 70 billion years are going to go on, and we're just 100 years of that story. And that's okay. We can accept those limitations, still want to cultivate our creative talents and our love for knowledge, but at the same time not think that any amount of slicing and dicing this very short time that we're given is going to be the source of value in our lives.